So if you've been following my videos, notice there's a kind of theme that's appeared a number of times. A very particular puzzle. I'm pretty sure I've cracked it and feel pretty excited by it. I want to talk about that and share this here to help ground it in myself and to put it forward so that if somebody else can benefit from it too, then they have an opportunity to do so. So there's a couple of days ago, I had an encounter that it sort of activated me. It triggered me. A light form of trigger, relatively speaking. It's not full-blown panic, but there was a lot of anxiety and stress in my body. Very little clarity accessible. I knew this and I could see it. It's like a lot of tension involved. I don't want to get into the details of it, but it was from something interpersonal, and the essence of it was me expecting from this other person a way of being stubbornly misunderstood. So I kept anticipating. This is something my mind was having. I kept anticipating that this other person was going to judge me or put pressure on me, and that I wanted to interact with what they had to say, but that when I imagined the things that they were likely to say in order for us to get to the point where I could get their perspective, get the part of their perspective that I actually would want, the process of interacting with that was just going to hit a brick wall. And it would hit a brick wall because they would be certain that I was behaving in one way when I could see very clearly I wasn't. And trying to get, hey, can we sync up? And getting a no, that's not an option. And this triggered a lot in me. All of the place this comes from, I can be fairly specific about what was triggered in me. When I was a kid, this has been true throughout my life, but when I was a kid, actually I was mostly homeschooled, but I had a brief experience of public school when I was in kindergarten. I would go to the principal's office every week, sometimes a couple times a week. The basic reason was that and sometimes they would call in my parents, and my parents would have a talk with me. My parents were actually very supportive, so this is part of what prompted the whole, yeah, let's homeschool our boy. But the reason I kept going to the principal's office was because of a dynamic where the teacher would say or do something or enact something that would land in me and sometimes it was literally the adult saying, I'm the grown-up and you're the child, which makes me right. And I couldn't. I just couldn't. There was just such a blatant violation of sanity that they were trying to force on me, power, that I just wouldn't have anything to do with it. And it wouldn't have anything to do with it. I was not clever, not whatsoever clever. I would just get extremely pissed. I would sometimes tell the teacher off. I would refuse to cooperate. I would scream and thrash on the floor. I would yell. Like none of this was sane for the context. But there's this deep sense of, you can't take my truth from me. Right, so that's part of what got triggered. And so I give this example because there's something about the way that I reacted afterwards that I think is really key here for understanding something about where is the point of actual control? Where is choice? I think I actually get it now. Like I can see it really clearly. I'm excited and intimidated because it highlights something really big. A place where I've been, even in my most deep attempts at self-development, and even in things of trying to support the world or meditate or go to various kinds of shamanic ceremonies and all these spiritual work, there's actually something much bigger than all of that that I have not been paying attention to. Now I'm looking at it and then orienting to it. That requires a little context. So let me continue with this example. So I noticed how after this recent interaction last week, I felt this kind of trigger, this sort of activation. The thing that my mind wanted to do, and it kept doing on its own, it would boot up this program and then run it for a while. There's this experience of rehearsing having conversations with this person to prepare to be able to defend my way of being in interacting with this person, so that I could stand my ground, so that I could be firm. And it's nonsense. When I take a breath and I step outside of the mind, by which I mean that computer that's booting up this program and rehearsing these thoughts, I didn't ask for the thoughts. So when I step outside of that machine and I ground in direct experience, and I look, I can see, oh, this doesn't make sense. This isn't what I want to do. I don't need to justify myself by having this person think something particular of me. And if I feel like I do, it's important for me to feel those feelings and digest those. But it's not important for me to control the other person's perception of me. That's not the deal. So there I want to highlight, and listen to how I'm describing this. The way that that program would boot up, this rehearsing how to have a conversation, that happened. I want to say something like it happened to me, but it didn't even really happen to me. It just happened, and I sort of was entranced by what my mind was doing. And I had to sort of shake myself out and go, no, not doing that. So there's very little choice involved in the thought booting up. Now, I've done this pattern a lot. This has been throughout my life. This way of preparing for how to have interactions with people. And the interactions basically never go the way that I prepare. But if it's something high stakes or really important, I'll run through worrying and planning and thinking and trying to position myself and digest and go, no, I want to show up fully. And then I'll practice showing up fully, which I think there's something good in it, something good about the practice. But it's sort of downstream. The intention I had behind it was to control my interaction with the other person in order to control their perception of me. Why? Oh, so that I could feel better about my sense of what they think and feel about me. So my intention is to get away from the discomfort and follow through on the strategy of controlling the other, manipulating the other. Okay. So if you had asked me, if somebody had come up to me and saying, hey, it looks like you're lost in thought, and they could get me to see, this isn't, preparing for this is not going to let you show up authentically. It's not going to digest it. If they could convince me of that, I could go, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't be preparing that kind of way. And I was doing that. I was choosing to think of them this way. And that's the challenge. The thing to notice is that rewinding a year, that doesn't change the fact that this program boots up on its own. It's not something I choose to boot up. If we rewind a year, what changes is how aware I am that the program boots up outside of my control. So this reminds me of a type of phenomenon. This might have been a clearer example to start with. When somebody looks at children and says, now children, you better behave, be on your best behavior. We're going to be in this kind of environment, or it's going to be this kind of family setting. We're going to have grandma over, and you need to behave. Okay. So there's a couple of problems with that. whole approach. One is, what does behave mean? Right? If there's a need for pressure, if the adult is implicitly threatening, you'd better behave or else. Like that may not even be in the conscious mind of the adult, but that is some of the energy behind it. Otherwise, why say it? It's very different from, hey kids, grandmother's coming over. Can we make sure that she feels some sort of ease? Right? Can we avoid making loud noises? And that's a very different spirit than saying, you'd better behave, be on your best behavior. Right? There's an intent behind that. And listen to that word again, intent. This is very important. So, one problem is this vagueness about what does it even mean. But part of the problem is that even if the kids know what it means, like can you imagine a 2-year-old is running around and you grab the 2-year-old by the shoulders, you get their attention, you get them looking in your eyes, and you say, calm down. Now, most 2-year-olds don't have the internal knowledge of how to self-regulate. They don't know how to calm down. It would be sort of like if I look at you and I said, get rich. Well, sure, I'll just do the get rich option. Beep. Oh, why didn't I think of that? I'm glad you pressured me. Right? What does that even mean? But this is a kind of pressure that gets applied all over the place. It's the standard. There's this sense of, I want to create this change in the world, so I'm going to tell it to behave differently. I'm going to try to make it do something different. But it can't do that. And so the 2-year-old has no ability to just calm down. And by applying a threat, there's actually a bit of trauma induction. There's a threat that is applied of do this impossible thing or else. And there's a kind of panic that can happen in the kid, which is something like, I'd better find a way to do this impossible thing because otherwise the bad thing will happen. You think about how often as kids, I don't know if this is still a standard thing, but this thing about when I'm going to count to 3, and if by the time I get to 3, if you are not in your room, or if you're not brushing your teeth or whatever it is, then you're in for it. 1, 2, and then secretly, I think a lot of adults are hoping that they never have to get to 3 because then they have to figure out what the hell they're doing. But so there can be this, like the intent of that is to induce fear, to induce a threat state in the body of the child. And then the child is stuck with, I have to figure out how to do this, or else bad. And the threat is extreme. Like the children are very, very sensitive. So you look at this with a 2-year-old, this is an immensely traumatizing thing. Grabbing the 2-year-old and saying, calm down. Not only do they not know how to do so, but now they're getting stimulated by the aggression of the adult, and the adult is threatening them. Great, now what? Right. So there isn't an option. There isn't something that the child can do. There is something that the child can do, but it's not something that the adult is offering. This is, as far as I can tell, the standard source of pain everywhere. It is the sense that what we experience ourselves as required to do is outside of our range of what we know how to do. Oh man, I really should just apologize to Joe about the way that I acted at the party. But it's so hard. Like I'm kind of intimidated about talking to Joe about this, and I don't think he's going to listen. And so that's describing a way in which, oh, I don't know how to apologize to Joe. It's not like the words are impossible to imagine. It's that the act of getting to the place where the words are said, how do you get there? oh, you just walk over and you do it. No, no, you don't. This is like saying that the way to quit smoking is to not put any more cigarettes in your mouth. Then you're free. If you feel an inclination to put a cigarette in your mouth, just don't. There's one level at which, of course, that's the only thing anybody could do. That's what quitting smoking is. But anybody who's ever struggled with any addiction, right, saying the cure to the addiction is to stop indulging, this doesn't address the problem at all. It isn't like, oh, I never thought of that. There's this effort of adding the should. I should just hit the don't indulge button. Oh, you can't do it with a negative, you've got to do it with a positive. So instead of putting a cigarette in your mouth, or instead of watching porn, or instead of going for another drink of alcohol, or whatever the addiction is, instead of going on to Reddit again, whatever the thing is, it doesn't matter what the addiction is. If you have something that you keep getting sucked into while you have in this background sense, I wish I would stop getting sucked into this, saying that the answer is to just stop doing it doesn't address the drive at all. It doesn't address the fact that the very intelligence you're using to even think about the problem is exactly what gets used in order to engage in it in the first place. So what do you mean just stop? There's a reason why the 12-step program has as this second step. Like the 12-step is for things like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. There's this standard 12 steps based on the kind of religious orientation. The first one is to admit that you have a problem. This is where the standard thing of hi, I'm Bill, and I'm an alcoholic. The point of saying that is for the person to acknowledge that they have a problem. So you're like, I'm not an alcoholic, so what, I have 5 drinks a day. That's perfectly fine. My body can handle it, and I could quit any time. Okay, cool. Until you admit you have a problem, you're not going to do anything about it. So that's the idea of the first step. The second step is to acknowledge that you have no power over the disease. And that one kind of throws a monkey wrench into things. What do you mean I don't have power over the disease? But if you have an addiction and you don't know how to stop, then it drives you. That's a fact. You don't have control over the disease. That doesn't mean you can't do anything that would affect it. This is just being realistic. This is sort of like, I don't know how to jump over a 2-story house. That is a capacity I am powerless to enact. I'm sure I might be able to figure out something. I might be able to learn pole vaulting and do a whole bunch of acrobatics, a whole bunch of athletic work. Might be able to develop the right kind of nanotech strength boosters, get diamondoid fiber across my bones so that they can handle the amount of force needed to shoot myself that far into the air. So I might be able to do it eventually, and if I dedicated my life to doing that, then I might be able to, maybe. But it's not something I can choose to do. I can choose to try. That's all I've got. I can choose to try. So this is a recurring theme. This happens over and over and over and over and over and over again. Last summer, this whole explosion around how deeply important it is for white people to do their work on anti-racism. And I have challenges with the theory and emotion that go back into that. But it's worth tracking, there's actually a term for the incapability of doing that work, white fragility. Looking at somebody who is enacting white fragility and saying, you have white fragility, you need to get over it and do your work, has the same level of function as looking at an alcoholic and saying, you have a problem, you need to stop being an alcoholic. Does it add some aggression so the person is more scared? it doesn't speak to what the actual mechanism is, where the real choice is. This is everywhere. This is absolutely everywhere. This attempt to make things be different, basically by applying extra force, the same way that we, as children, had force applied to us. I'm the adult, and you're the child. So you will do what I say, and I say that you need to calm down, or else. Now what? We're a traumatized species. We've been carrying these traumas, possibly since the dawn of time. We're working them out. This is the lucid mind of the universe waking up, possibly for the first time. Isn't that marvelous? What it would be like to finally be a race free of mind-clouding trauma. It's in reach. It's in reach. But the first thing, as far as I can tell, the first thing is we've got to pay attention to what we can actually do. Can you really keep up with an exercise program? Well, come on, it's not that hard to go to the gym and lift some weights. Like, you know how to go to the gym and lift some weights, or run on the treadmill, or whatever your preferred exercise program is. I mean, now with COVID, of course, it's more complicated, but you can just pop on a video and do some yoga, right? What's so hard about that? Oh, you have motivation problems. Well, what if, even when you have motivation problems, you just do it anyway? Can you feel how what this does is the same thing as calm down? Behave. It doesn't address the problem. Why is there difficulty? And difficulty is there for a reason. You don't have to understand the reason. You can recognize there is reason. There's a reason it's there. You don't have, most people do not have the power to choose to exercise. Sorry, I said that a little ambiguously. Most people do not have the power to exercise. They cannot get themselves to do it. They might be able to force themselves once or twice. And set up systems. Like, hey bud, if you don't see me at the gym, like, I'm thinking of BC, before COVID. Like, hey bud, I'm gonna head to the gym each of these days, and if you see me at this time not in the gym, then then I owe you $10. Right? Like something like this, where there's an accountability system, or maybe having a gym buddy, so that there's a sense of, if I don't go, then I'm not showing up for this other person, and that's harder. That's even more painful. So if I apply enough pain, then I will find myself moving in this direction. It's like using cattle prods to force machinery to move. The thing that we're mostly not paying attention to is the fact that we actually have almost no choice over anything that happens. Right? It's really important to see this clearly. This is empowering if we see it clearly. But initially it looks like it's disempowering. But it's acknowledging what's true. Most people have no power over almost anything in their lives. It just happens. I don't have power over how pleasant the interaction is with my parents or with my girlfriend. I don't have power over how much money I earn, whether people contact me for consultations. I don't seem to have the power to be inspired to write an article. And even when I am inspired, I do not have the power to write it. And sometimes I will sit down and try to write, and the words won't come. My mind will jam. This is not just, I guess this is a version of what writer's block, but this is of the flavor of when I sit down to write, and I'm working on writing, what I come out with, I can tell, is flat. It's banal, or banal. I'm never quite sure how to pronounce that word in mouth speak. Know how to spell it. And I can tell that whatever I'm producing, I'm going to erase. This isn't flowing, it's not pleasurable, and it's not going to be well received. It's not going to convey the ideas. So in practice, even though I am doing my best in that moment, I cannot write. But I'm a good writer. So I can't choose to do these things. I can't choose to be a more caring person or to be kinder. I definitely can't choose to be better. What does that even mean? If I put enough anxiety into it, then I'll figure it out, right? Kind of. That's a distortion. So, a lot of the movements, have you ever been driving between a couple of places that you're pretty familiar with? Like a classic one is when people are driving home from work and they're thinking, yeah, I want to hit the grocery store and pick up something. And start thinking about some of the things that they want to do, maybe something they want to cook, or some like a friend they want to call, and then they just find themselves at home. Because while they were lost in thought, their body drove the car, and it followed a familiar route, and just took them home. Sort of missed the command to go to the grocery store. So in that case, did the person actually have the ability to go to the grocery store? They intended to, they tried to, and they couldn't. You might think this is pedantic. This is absolutely essential. This is important stuff. This is so freeing to recognize. So freeing. Because it means that these are all the things that I don't have to worry about. I can't control them. All I can do is watch. I can't control whether I learn a skill I'm trying to learn. And this goes all the way down to, how do I learn how to move my fingers? Most people don't remember this. I sometimes get the impression that I get glimpses of remembering how to move my body, but some of that is coming from extrapolation, I'm sure. I definitely have a lot of experiences from martial arts and yoga and Tai Chi and so like a bunch of different physical arts, of learning how to standing on one leg. I don't know how to show this with my arms, because the arms are pointed in the wrong direction. So the standing on one leg and putting the other leg on the thigh, toes pointed down, and just being on balance. And for really epic challenge of balance, closing the eyes. You're just removing all of the cues of balance except the inner ear and the sensation on the feet and the body's proprioception, the body's sense of space. I do not have the ability to choose to stay standing. Sorry, that's a little ambiguous. Let me be clearer. I cannot make myself balance, but I can choose to try to balance. I can intend to balance. This is the one place of freedom that I actually have. And I think this is universal. I think this may be the universal. This is the point of actual freedom. This is what freedom is. This is the experience of freedom. It's very subtle, but it is the only point. I can choose to intend to balance. I cannot choose to balance. I do not have that power. But I can choose to intend to balance. The intention is part of how the learning happens. I try and I kind of stumble around and I focus again and I stumble. And I'm doing this day after day. Eventually, I stabilize. I'm not responsible for the stabilization. I'm not responsible for the learning. The learning happens. It just happens. I have nothing to do with it after I've given the intention. It's just machinery. I watch as this learns how to respond to my intent. Now, I think the same thing happens with something as simple as moving my fingers. I was confused about this for a while because I have this impression when I actually zoom in on the lived experiences of my fingers or moving my fingers around. On the one hand, I know most of this is mechanism. I don't have control over how the blood moves. Well, if I concentrate, I can kind of affect it. I can make my finger tingle. I can affect the nerves. I can change the heat. And I know that if I work at it, if I intend, I can develop the capacity to have more control. But it's responding, and right now I don't have that control, and it's a mechanism. It's just automatic. So as I'm relating to it, I notice most of this I don't have control over, but I still have this impression that I can choose to move my fingers. I think the important subtlety here is that I'm not actually choosing to move my fingers. That's a shortcut. I'm choosing to intend to move my fingers in a certain way. I choose the intention. The thing is that because this is so well learned, there's no separation between the intention and the machinery's response. This just moves. It just moves. This becomes super clear when I try to play guitar. I'm not a very good guitar player. And I discovered there's an interesting problem here where if I off screen, if I try to bend this pinky finger, the ring finger bends. I cannot. There's just no way. I can bend the ring finger on its own, but the pinky finger always makes my ring finger bend. The nerve is wired across both of them. This makes certain kinds of chords very difficult to do. And so I thought I had control over my hand, but now I'm noticing, oh, there's that one piece. I can do that on this hand just fine. That's easy, but here, nope. Not the left hand. That's the one that holds the chords. So, okay. So either I'm doing it right-handed or I'm learning how to rewire my hand, or I'm not doing chords that way. I'm not doing chords the normal way. Those are the parameters I have to work with. So suddenly, oh, that's interesting. I thought I had control over how my fingers move, but it turns out I don't. I can't choose for my fingers to form these chords, but I can choose to try. I can choose to intend to get my fingers to make those chords. That's the point of freedom. That is the experience of freedom. For those of my audience here who may be having a lot of issue with their own desperate attempt to find some kind of stability in a scientific materialist framework and go, what is this magical free will choice thing? Where is it? Where? Like, what is this kind of mechanism? Are you proposing some sort of ghost in the machine? Right, first, if that's the kind of reaction, if you feel very judgmental, particularly towards me, I mean, that's up to you. I have an invitation, though, if you're having that kind of reaction. First, I'll tell you in step 2 a thought that can help with this, I think that you'll find it perfectly satisfactory. If not, then there we are, but I'm pretty sure you'll find it just fine. Notice the reaction. Just notice the reaction in your body. That's my invitation. Just take a breath. And then notice that I am talking about the experience of choice. Where exactly is the experience of choice? Even if it's all machinery all the way down, there's still a point. There's still some place that we experience making choice. Even if it's all an illusion, we still experience it. Well, if you want to get your knickers in a twist, I'll let you know also, yeah, I do think this is something more fundamental than the scientific materialist framework. But I'm not glued to that idea either. This is not about abstract philosophy of what is real. This is about a direct practical question of how do I create change? How do I actually create change? How do I have a happier and more fulfilled life? How do I build things in the world that I want to build, that I want to see built? How do I show up in kindness and love with other people? How do I do so better? How can I love better? We can't affect most of that directly. So trying directly to do that doesn't make sense. It's like saying, behave. How? But we do have the freedom to try. Same way that an infant actually has approximately no control over exactly how the hands move. There's a little bit, but very, very little conscious control. You can watch as babies will first figure out these wobbly things. How do they move? I can make it move. I can make it move. Look at that. It bends in the middle. I can choose to do this. And what's going on? Like you watch kids like if you watch a baby really engaged, part of what they're doing is bringing all of this intent in. They're intending to feel their control. They're intending to get the experiences that they're having to shift in accordance with their intent. They're learning what choice is. They're learning what will is at all. We just get a little lost as adults because we extend our will into the narrative world. And then we pretend that we can affect these grand narratives. We can barely affect our own bodies. We can just choose to intend. That's it. There's so much more to say about this. It's become very clear to me. The way that I think everything is made of intent. Everything. I think maybe even the physical world. In a particular way of speaking, a particular way of thinking. Because the fact that I experience, this is, one way to relate to this is that like my experience of a cup is coming from my intention to interact with the world. So I'm sort of, you can think of this as like a mental projection. My mind projects something onto reality in order for me to have a sense of how to interact. So I end up having this, oh, this is a cup, here is its surface. I know what it feels like, I know how to touch it, I know what it is. how to use it. That interplays with, okay, well, I'm now going to choose, wrap my fingers around this part and lift this and move it around and fill this with water and drink of it. So what makes this a cup is my intent. What makes a marriage feel tense and difficult is the intent of the person who's feeling it that way. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to feel it that way. So, in a very important way, I think that everything that makes up what we experience as reality may actually be made of intention. It's just that most of the things that have a kind of stability to them have intentions sort of locked in. The same way that when I felt that activation from when the adults would tell me, I'm the grown-up, you're the child, and therefore I'm right. And that makes me right. And the heat and anger that I feel, those shoot up. It's like this ball of emotional energy that is held together by an intention that I had shoved down. It is some sort of, you don't get to affect me this way, and how dare you, I want to, rah, like some sort of ill-defined thing. But having an ill-defined thing doesn't prevent something from being an intent. It just means that the intention fulfilled won't have a clear form. It will be hard to anticipate what it would do, and it might not be able to do anything because of that. So, and there's this way where part of the reason this feels so important to me, like for one thing, the only thing that matters in terms of what is worth putting thought into intentionally, like when asking things like, what is worth doing? That question only matters to the extent that it reflects where there is free will. Otherwise, the question is interacting with a mechanical mind that is mechanically producing reactions. It doesn't matter. The question doesn't matter. The only place it matters, I think, I wonder if I'm, I forgot to unplug this. That's unfortunate. I think I can make the rest of the video a little bit clearer in terms of audio. I hope this does okay. I tried to not put the headphones in, but I forgot to unplug the headphones, so my microphone is a bit distant, kind of behind the camera. So I'll find out in the replay how bad that damage was. So, yeah, it so transforms my experience to have my ears plugged. I think I'm gonna just hook these here and hope this is good. Okay. So, part of the reason this matters so much is that there's for me this vivid lived clarity of, for one thing, this is the only thing that's worth focusing on. I can intend to learn about the rest of the world. I can intend to understand all these other mechanisms. I might not be able to choose how humanity deals with aging, for instance. I have preferences about it, and I don't have the power to choose what humanity does. But I do have the power to intend to affect. And this is really important to track the difference. I don't have the power over the output, what happens. I can't affect the outcome. Sorry, I can't control the outcome. But I can intend to. I can choose to intend. And if I hold an intention, then if there is any pathway by which my intention can be fulfilled, then as I hold that intention and with the amount of determination with which I choose to hold that intention, will shape my interactions with everything I encounter, like with triggers that show up, like the physical objects, the way that my mind is creative, minds, like this is a thing known in mathematics, that you have to intend to solve a problem. They need to talk about it in terms of struggling with a problem, really grappling with it. But you don't have control over the insight in mathematics. And this is not unique to math by any means. You don't have control over getting the insight. You have control over the intent to get insight. The intent goes into contact with the mind, and the mind reshapes its machinery until it becomes capable of offering an insight. That's the essence of learning. Learning is an intention coming into contact with. It has to find a way through, but there isn't a known way through, the way there's a known way through how to control the fingers. We had to learn how to maneuver our fingers. So this leaves me, and this walks me right to the edge and has me stare at this and go, okay, I think I see where I've been getting confused. Now I have clarity. Now I see where I have a choice. It's kind of intimidating. And it's beautiful and it's exciting. My ability to shape my world is entirely based on what intention I hold for shaping my world. So what do I choose to intend? I've been bouncing between a few different ones because the implicit intention I've had is mostly to go along for the ride and add a little bit of focus, a little bit of shaping so that my mind can become a little clearer, so that I can come to see truth more clearly. But also I want to have a good time. Right? And there's a lot about sexuality that I find beautiful, that I want to dive into more. There's this important bit about what it even means to know anything at all, grounding in clarity, what I referred to as clear knowing in a previous video. Earlier today, in talking with my girlfriend, I realized I think that a better phrase, a better way for capturing the feeling in myself for what it is that I am resonating with, that I can go, oh, that's my essence, that's the thing that wants to come through me, to use Perry Chase's language. I serve the eternal. That's why I look at this eternal intent. And, I named this video Eternal Intent. I'm not going to get much to the eternal part, and I wasn't sure if I was going to. I just want to touch on this very briefly. I can choose to intend to fully embody and manifest this eternal essence throughout my mind and heart and being. Let it reshape me. I could also instead intend to build a multi-million-dollar company. I could intend to just enjoy every day. I could intend to write philosophy books or fictional pieces of work. I could intend, I can intend anything. I can choose to intend anything. This is a true point of dramatic freedom, immense freedom. What I intend is independent of the mechanisms that are available to me. The mechanisms determine something like the range of what the intent is likely to manifest. How much has to change, what I have to work with. I can intend to fly by jumping out my window all I want to, but I don't have access to that in any way that I can perceive in the next 10 minutes. So there's some practical challenges there. But if I'm tuning in with truth, there's a question of, okay, So what now? If I keep switching my intention, then it doesn't build momentum. I don't shape my mind and my being, my body, the world around me. It doesn't converge into a unified will that manifests that thing. If they happen to be compatible, it'll kind of meander in a certain direction. I think that's part of how I've gotten as far as I have. I've had a general intention that a set of intentions that kind of average out in a direction that brings a certain degree of clarity. But now I see, oh, this is the point of freedom. This is where I can influence things. I can't influence almost anything. I can't influence when I have spiritual insights. I can't influence when I have insights about how to take a bath. Right? What I can do is directly affect what I intend, where my attention goes. But not where my attention goes in an ongoing way. I can't choose to be aware of my body. I can choose to intend to be aware of my body. And then if I stick with that, I become more aware of my body. So given all of these options, if everything I do, if everything I am is in service to one intent, one drive to rule them all, what do I choose? I think I know the answer. I think I know what I will want to do. Now I know how to choose. And that's exciting.